Hey, hi, it's me, Wilma Fingerdoo with the Fingerdoo review of Drag Race UK Season 2, Episode 3. And before I get started, I would just like to send a huge, juicy thank you to all this week's Tipperdoos. And I want to kick it off by saying cooey to Doris and Tony Wu from Worcester. I hope I'm saying that right. Worcestershire, UK. They're in a shire and they're from UK. And the thing about Doris and Tony is they have been watching me for quite some time. And I just want to say thank you for all your support over the years. I'm so thrilled. I also want to say thank you to Alexis Venzura, Aiden Metafrans, and David Barrett. They all popped by through my PayPal to tip me. And I'd like to thank you because I couldn't do this show without your support. And if you would like to be a Tipperdoo, the link is down below. I'm just saying. I also want to send a shout out to this week's Redbubble model, Positive Sakura, in his fabulous Sweet Marie and the Ships at Sea mask. Now, I want to say I'm so sorry that they weren't up on Redbubble, Positive, because I didn't realize they weren't. What happened was Positive wanted to get a mask with my Lar de Souza Sweet Marie and the Ships at Sea mermaid on it, and I just had no idea that I didn't have them available on the Redbubble site. So thank you for letting me know. Thank you for picking one up. And if you would like to get this style mask, I also have fitted masks. There's t-shirts, designs by Lar de Souza and Denise Cherneau. They're all available on my Redbubble page, and that link is down below too. I'm just saying. Okay, Jorge, drink me. Ooh. No tiny umbrella? You know, I love me a tiny umbrella, I'm just saying. This is what we call a skinny biatch. It's vodka and Coke. Ooh, I got a little salivated there for a second. It's very delicious. Have another one. Okay, so let's get to it. We started this episode off by saying goodbye to Cherry Valentine, and you could see none of the queens were expecting to bid Miss Valentine adieu so soon. Tace seemed more focused on making sure that she didn't land there again, while Tia seemed happy to have another queen go home, whether she was a threat or not. That's a lot of big talk for a basic girl, if you ask me. Of course, Veronica was congratulated, as well she should. I have to say I agree with her that she could have been the one to sashay away if she hadn't pushed for the role of Evita. Ellie took it one step further and was seeing Ronnie as a threat for the first time and starting to question where she stood in the competition. The next day in the workroom, the queens celebrated being top 10. Hey, aim low is what I'm saying. It's the little things you gotta celebrate. Ronnie and Estina rubbed their badges in everyone's faces just long enough for RuPaul's video message's siren call. This week's message started with fashion and ended with frock destroyers, so needless to say, Ru had their attention, especially when she entered with this week's mini challenge, Limbo for Your Life. The queens had to get into quick carnival drag, whatever that is, and limbo till the lowest queen was left bent over backwards. And I don't mean that in a sexy way, because it wasn't. And with celebrity DJ Jody Harsh encouraging the queens to shake their bonbons, you may remember Jody from her brief cameo in the Ab Fab movie. The queens got to limboing. Well, this mini challenge was vivid. Most of the queens got under the first couple of rungs the bar was set at, but it wasn't pretty. And I haven't even mentioned Lawrence Chaney yet, who I think should get an extra mark for this stunner. I'm just saying. I know I was stunned. Where's this tutorial, Lawrence, my lover? Don't tease us now, pet. I have a wig that color, I'm just saying. Twinsies. But the lower that bar got, so did my expectations, except where Ellie Diamond was concerned. The lower the bar got for her, the more I was convinced she was going to take somebody's eye out by popping a nut. Seriously. Now that was vivid. Even the visually impaired didn't know where to look. Well, we knew where to look, we just couldn't look away. I'm so serious. It all came down to Veronica Green and Tace, who proved to be the bendiest by tying for the win, which brought Ru to this week's Maxi challenge. But before Ru told them what it was, she asked all the queens to pair up with their best Judy from the cast. So, without much muss or fuss, the teams were Sister and Ginny, Ronnie and Tia, Tace and Ahura Natch, Estina and Bimini, and finally the Scottish lassies, Lawrence and Ellie. And that's when Rue told them the theme for the Maxi Challenge was, who wore it best? Yes, the ride or dies were now rivals. Each pair would be assigned a color-themed box full of materials and sundries to create a runway-worthy look. And the judges would declare which one of them wore it best. Well, the queens were gagged, especially Ahura, who immediately regretted not being better friends with Tia. Not only was this a sewing challenge, but the queens were only being judged against one another. There would be nowhere to hide. You could practically hear these queens poop their panties, seriously. Yep, there it is. Because Tace and Ronnie were the winners of the mini challenge, they got to assign the boxes to the other queens. For Tia and herself, Ronnie picked green. Much to Tia's chagrin, Tia was worried that Michelle would hate their outfits just based on the color alone. She's probably right. Tace picked black for her and Ahura. Who wouldn't? Veronica gave pink to Sister and Ginny. Tace gave blue to Estina and Bimini, and that left gold for Lawrence and Ellie. Now, I have to say, I love a sewing challenge, mostly because I can sew. But a sewing challenge always separates the queens from the divas, if you ask me. Sewing aside, you should know what silhouette works best for you. Believe me, if you know that, half the job's done. Anyone can make an outfit, but whether or not it suits you is another matter altogether, I'm just saying. Needless to say, Ahura was gagging for this challenge. She has a degree from a top fashion design school in London, which is saying something because London has quite a few, I'm just saying. Her competition Taste was just happy to see there was a glue gun in the room. That always bodes well. As the queens de-dragged, Ginny told Lawrence she could sew. She just didn't say what she could sew. Apparently, it's a pillowcase, which explains why she always looks like she just got out of bed. I have to say, these boxes were generous. There was a great selection of usable fabrics in each box. Mind you, that just seemed to further confuse some of the queens. Everyone seemed more or less pleased with their color, except for Sister, who generally doesn't have a problem with pink. She did, however, have a problem with these pinks. Picky. Larry and Ellie were getting along. I'm not surprised that they paired up, being the proper Scottish lads that they are, but I don't get the sense that they're friends. No offense. Even though Lawrence has advised Ellie from time to time, and Ellie styled wigs for Lawrence, I don't get the sense that they hang out a lot. I mean, the fact that Ellie wanted to win over Lawrence because, as a more experienced queen, it would kill her, says it all, which wasn't going to be easy because Larry went from sewing cuddly toys to catsuits before he was a teenager. Of course, that's a more impressive statement when you're not 23. None of your business. Which brings us to Tia, who admitted that she's that idiot queen who knows there's a sewing challenge a-coming and still does nothing to prepare for it. Mind you, she did prepare for it, so she said, by practicing with garbage bags. That's probably what's throwing her off. Fabric. Thank God Rue showed up to check on the queen's progress. Her first stop was Sister and Lemon. Did anyone else notice Ginny's lobster earring? I was obsessed because lobsters are notoriously ignored by the bijou industry. I'm the only one who noticed that? This was a fabulous visit because Rue confronted Ginny on her negative view of her own body. She made an excellent point by saying to Ginny that with padding and a corset, she could have any body she wanted. I get it, Ginny doesn't like her body. Of course, that didn't stop her from mooning the judges last week, but who in the world does like their body? If everyone were satisfied, there wouldn't be plastic surgery, I'm so serious. But I loved Rue asking the question, what would happen if Ginny started looking sexy? Well, Ginny didn't know. Neither did I. Bimini and Estina, the body queens, were next. Estina showed Rue the sketch of her look and got very little feedback in return, which always bodes well. Bimini's theme, on the other hand, was well-dressed stripper. Rue seemed disappointed that she'd be dressed at all. But it was still a better reaction than Estina got, I'm so serious. Next on Rue's fashion crawl were Ellie and Larry, and they gave us an interesting view into the Scottish drag scene. $15 for a guest spot? I don't know. Here in Toronto, if you're not booked on the show, you don't get paid. Maybe you get a drink ticket for the guest spot, but it's just tips and building a presence in the community. So I totally understand Ellie taking a step back to work at McDonald's to support her drag. Larry was just thrilled that she didn't have to become a sex worker to support her drag. Yet. Speaking of sex workers, Larry shared with Rue her observances of Tace and Ahura's close relationship, much to Tace's shock and disbelief. Methinks the lady doth protest too much. Just saying. Next, Rue visited with Veronica and Tia. Veronica showed Rue her sketch and explained where she wanted to take it, and after just coming off a win where she was praised for her sense of style, Rue had no further questions. The same cannot be said for Tia's sketch. Rue was filled with questions, which gave her something in common with Tia. Bless. The alleged lovebirds, Tace and Ahura, were next, and Rue got right down to it. Is there any truth to Lawrence Chaney's accusations of sexual tension between the queens? Well, Tace assured Rue that she was just there to make a garment, and that Larry wouldn't know sexual tension if it slapped her across the face. Well, to be honest, neither would I. But I'd be willing to take one for the team. Shh. And then it was time for Rue to depart, but not before she revealed a twist to the Maxi challenge. The queens from each pair who didn't wear it best would be up for elimination right there and then. Needless to say, barf. Without even realizing it, the queens had set themselves up to go head-to-head with a friend with possible elimination hanging in the balance. Double barf. This seemed to bother Veronica to no end, but I don't see how this changed anything. Even if they were being judged as individuals, the ones who did worse would be in the bottom regardless. So I'm glad Tia told her to suck it up, pull on her big girl panties, and carry on. Good for Tia. Another reason this was a fabulous episode was because we really got a lot of insight into Ginny's non-binary world. I have to admit, I've not got a lot of experience with non-binary identification, so hearing Jenny talk about her experience was brilliant. Just the fact that she wears yellow because it's a non-binary color was news to me. Of course, now Cherry's look last week makes more sense to me, but I still don't like it. It was also heartbreaking to hear of Ginny's struggles to fit in just within herself, and to hear her realization that comfort within oneself is a long journey that she's nowhere to completing herself. Still, she's further along the path than those that are judgy. I'm so serious. Bimini, the other non-binary queen in the room, took a moment to let Ginny know she understands how emotional it can be to explain non-binary every time it comes up. And I get it, but it's conversations like these that help spread the word, so I think we're all better for having the conversation in the first place. I'm so serious. Either way, I was super glad that Bimini let Ginny know she's not alone. Bless. Meanwhile, Tace was having the worst time, and Ahura seemed to be compromising her own outfit by helping Tace with hers, even though she worried that she would end up in the bottom if she didn't stop. But she didn't. Tia's indecision was driving Veronica mad, although I don't know why. As nice as Tia is, she's still competition. Focus, Ronnie! Seriously. And then it was elimination day, and the queens got down to work finishing their outfits. Astina was feeling confident. Confident enough to judge the other queens' outfits as questionable, even though I was still questioning Astina's skirt and blouse. It immediately put me in mind of Sum Ting Wong's navy jacket from last season. Being impeccably made doesn't make something not boring. Meanwhile, Sister was helping Ginny get in touch with her sexy, feminine side, although I don't think her choice of tank top was helping. Ahura was feeling more than the pressure of the Maxi challenge. Designing a look for the runway seemed to dredge up all her feels from her time spent in the fashion industry, working for names. Names, sweetie! Ahura admitted to feeling dismissed from the fashion industry because of her drag career. All those names just saw her as a camp drag, while the queens on the scene dismissed her as just a designer. Personally, and no offense to Ahura, I think she's making excuses. If she were a better designer, the fashion industry wouldn't care if she were a drag queen, and if she were a better drag queen, the other queens wouldn't see her as a designer. They'd see her as a threat. Personally, it sounds to me like she's reached that age where being pretty just isn't enough. I know, I'm dreading that day coming too. To up her sexy quotient, Ginny added a breastplate to her look. You'd think 4 tits would be better than 2, but no. Tia wished she could up anything about her look. So did I. And then it was time for the runway. All I can say is, with all this talk about fashion and stepping it up, I'm so happy to say I love this look on Rue. Joining Rue on the judges panel, because, well, Rue'd be lost without her, was Michelle Visage. Beside her was the ever-hilarious Graham Norton. And finally, showing everyone how it's done in a lampshade from the Eco Village, Jordan Dunn. Category is, who wore it best? Taste was first, and the best thing about her runway was her face. I'm so serious. The jacket was a mess. And we've already seen that wig, so this was a finger don't for me. Not that Ahora's was much better. I didn't understand the bike shorts over the leggings. If it had been a skirt, fine, but that cut her leg in the wrong place. Also, with all that black, she needed to break up the rest of her silhouette with a different texture or tone. This, sadly, was also a finger don't for me. Although, because she wore a new wig, she was ahead of Tace. Just by a hair. The best thing I can say about Ginny Lemon is that I would never have recognized her in this outfit. I was impressed with her attempt at sexy. Personally, I think she fell short and hit sleazy, but that's still in the wheelhouse. I'm so serious. I just wish she had been able to make the dress fit better. Plus, those yellow tights and grandma heels were killing me, so sadly it was still a finger don't. The best thing about Sister Sister's runway was that it wasn't Ginny's. I liked elements of it. The sleeves and pants were fun, and I love orange and pink together, but the blue face with the natural hands threw me off, so I gave this a finger don't as well. But I still thought it was better than Ginny's. I don't think I would have liked Veronica Green's runway as much if I hadn't had to suffer through what was going on so far. But, as she said, it was hemmed and it was lined. And I didn't hate that little shoulder thing going on, but that bikini top was giving me a rash. But I still gave it a finger do. Here's the thing about Tia Coffey's runway. It wasn't the worst, but it could see it from where it was standing, I'm just saying. If Tia had a better sense of herself, she could have taken a square of any fabric in that room, added a strap or two to it, and just let it cascade over her. But she didn't, so it was a finger don't for me. The best thing about Estina's runway were her legs. As for the rest of it, well, I liked the color, but not enough to stop myself from giving it a finger don't. I didn't hate Bimini's runway either. The solid front with the slit, the full lace back, I could see where she was headed. I just wish she'd had a better map, because this was all over the place for me. So even though I liked it a lot better than Estina's, I still gave it a finger don't. God, I hate everything this week. Ellie's Marie Antoinette-inspired leotard was cute. The design was simple enough, but she seemed to overdress it with trim and accoutrement. But, busy or not, it was a solid finger do from me. And then Lawrence Chaney took the runway, and all I have to say is when I saw this, my jaw dropped. I clutched my pearls. This was perfection. Over the top while still being understated. The proportion of that skirt didn't overpower the delicateness of the sheer top. The white eyebrows and the wig were literal icing on this gilded bonbon. By the way, I wish my drag queen name in high school had been Gilded Bonbon, but it was taken. Needless to say, this was a well-deserved finger do for me that was able to blow Ellie's look out of the water, no offense. And then it was time for the hammer to fall. Without softening the blow, Rue went down the line and passed her judgment. Ahura wore it better than Tace. Sister wore it better than Ginny. Veronica wore it better than Tia. Bimini wore it better than Estina. And Lawrence wore it better than Ellie. But the one who wore it the best out of everyone was my Glaswegian teddy bear, Lawrence Chaney. She was announced as this week's winner. And with the final congrats from the judges, the Safe Queens frigged off to the Untucked Lounge. No one really hated Tace's look, but Michelle pointed out that it was too soon to see that wig again. Thankfully. Ginny was given kudos from the judges for sexing it up, but Michelle still read her for not accentuating her waist and for wearing those shoes. Graham felt that the longer Ginny was on stage, the more he could see what was wrong with her outfit, so I guess he's saying she should hit the ground running. Rue asked Ginny why she'd avoided a sexy image in her career, and when she'd finished telling Rue about her years of fighting her negative image of herself, Rue challenged her to create a new persona based on her new look, which I thought was a nice way of saying, I hate the old you. Anyone else? Tia was next, and you could tell she was ready for the worst. So, when Michelle asked her if she could tell what she was about to say, Tia said that it was stunning, and Michelle thought she should be in the top, and then they laughed. Rue and Jordan talked about how Tia could look like a high fashion model with her figure and asked why she hadn't tried it. You could tell by her bringing up Tace that Tia doesn't feel beautiful, but Jordan stopped her by saying that she was amazing and that she just had to step into her light and step into her greatness. That's great advice no matter who you are, I'm just saying. Estina was next, and Graham said it best when he said he was underwhelmed. So was I. I mean, she looked good and all, but compared to the other queens, she just faded off into the shadows. Ru pointed out that Estina was stunning and had a lot to work with, and that's why she was disappointed with her look, which turned on Estina's waterworks, bless. Lots of crying this runway is all I'm saying. Last but not least was Ellie Diamond. Michelle loved her look and said she was eked out by Lawrence's stronger look by just a hair. The judges threw all sorts of references around, but the one I think Ellie will remember was Jordan saying that she put her in mind of Beyonce. It's not too shabby. Back in the Untucked lounge, the Safe Queens congratulated Lawrence on her first win and pointed out Ahura looked pissed off by it all. Well, she wasn't pissed, she was just disappointed at not doing better at the one challenge she knew she could win. Veronica said she fell short because she'd spent too much time helping Tace. Regardless of whether that was true or not, the queens wondered who would be in the bottom. The majority seemed to pick Tia for obvious reasons, but Ahura seemed to have more personal reasons for her to go, although her biggest issue was that Tia was boring, while better queens than her were being sent home every week. First of all, calm down, Ahura. It's been 2 queens out of 12 so far. I'm glad that Veronica stood up for Tia by bringing up how well she'd done the week before. Ahura didn't seem to care. Thank God the bottom queens arrived, because that seemed to shut Ahura up. Good thing, too, because Tia was obviously emotional. She told the queens how frustrated she was to be her own worst enemy, although knowing that there are queens waiting for her to go home wasn't helping. Ahura! Ginny seemed to be hanging on to Ru's appreciation of her trip outside her box to keep her safe. Estina was worried. She could tell the judges weren't as impressed with her look as with some of the others, but she promised that if she was lip-syncing, none of them were ready for what she was bringing. Something Tia was already more than worried about, bless. Back on the main stage, it was no surprise that Tace and Ellie were safe. What was a surprise was that Ginny was as well. Not that she didn't deserve it. She took way more of a risk than the other queens combined. And that's when Tia's nightmare began. Being in the bottom with Miss Extensive CV herself, Estina Mandela? Well, I know I was worried. The song this week was Dua Lipa's Don't Start Now. And although Estina started off strong, Tia's nerdy simplicity was beyond endearing. She knew she couldn't outdance Estina, but that didn't mean she couldn't outperform her, and that's exactly what Tia did. She let her comedy shine through by trying to serve us a Naomi Smalls backbend, almost, and selling her nerdy dance steps for all they were worth. As for Estina, her lip sync was like her outfit. Professional, but boring, and combine that with her navy outfit, I found my eyes drifting to Tia more and more, so although it was a total gag, I for one was not surprised that Ru told Tia to Shantae. Of course, no one was more shocked by this than Tia herself. Seriously, look at her face there. Not in the month of Sundays did she ever think she would be sending the legendary Estina Mandela home. And Estina was beyond gracious about it, which I have to admit was a bit of a surprise to me. But she is a pro, above all else, and with a short and sweet, rude, Estina Mandela was the 3rd queen eliminated on Drag Race UK Season 2. Well, what do you think? Did the right queen go home? Should Ginny have been safe with that look no matter how much she tried? And if she had landed in the bottom, would she have made Estina safe then? And what about that lip sync? Could Estina have done more, or do you think she did enough to send Tia home? Either way, the rest of the queens were gagged because Estina won that first challenge and had a repeater badge. Should that have counted for something? And what about Tia? Will this be the kick in her padded butt to push beyond being basic? Or is she next? All we can do is tune into RuPaul's Drag Race UK next week. And when you're done, you come on back and you see me so you and I can compare notes. Now, don't forget to like this video if you did. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't. And until next week, miss me. Mwah. Seriously, Jorge. Oh, seriously, Jorge. I think that RuPaul's Drag Race should come with a warning if it's going to keep pulling the rug out from under people like that. I'm so serious. I'm not strong enough. Because I hate seeing anybody go home. Oh, but I love me those sewing challenges. And this one was a hard one to watch because still there are queens who can't sew. What is going on with people? It's not hard. Just lay a shirt down and cut around it. You can sew a shirt. I mean, it's not. You only have to wear it for one song. You know what I'm saying? It's just, I don't know. And glue gun is nobody's friend. Nobody's. You always pay a price with hot glue.